right. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for being here today with us on WRUU LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Sonics Community Radio with Global Soul, and today is a very special presentation of the Adam Messer Show. Today I'm going to be talking about my new magazine. It's called Storytellers Mag, and it is featuring authors and storytellers, musicians, screenwriters, anybody that tells a story. And the idea is to share the fun side of storytelling. And so I am really thrilled to have my special guests with me today. They're the first two interview people that I'm doing for the magazine, and they've both been on the show before. So Ron Fortier is here and Bobby Nash is here. So welcome, gentlemen. How are you?
I'm doing great, and thanks for having us back on.
Thank you, Ron. And how are you doing, Bobby?
I'm good. It's always good to be on here with you, and it's especially good to be on with Ron. I haven't talked to Ron in a while in person, so it's a nice little treat.
I know.
It's like old home week. I mean,
yeah,
homecoming, yeah.
Bobby and I have done cons together. We've done panels together. We've done podcasts together.
We've done books together.
Yeah, even books. How about that?
Well, I'm excited because, so a little backstory here for everybody that's listening in and tuning in. You're probably like, what is this guy Adam doing again, right? But all these different things that I do, they go back into storytelling, like the publishing, the radio show with the interviews with authors and artists and entertainers, doing the stuff that I do, the writing, working, doing journalism with the Savannah Morning News. It all goes back to storytelling. And so when I started the Savannah Quill in 2016, the idea was to connect writers and readers to promote literacy. And that's what I wanted to do, was connect writers and readers to promote literacy. And we've done that. We've done a lot of events. We've done conventions. We've done the Books and Brews fundraiser for the Ronald McDonald House to raise funds for them. And that's been going on, for a while now. And then you remember last year I launched the Valhalla Books as an imprint for the publishing. Well, back in 2017, I did a Savannah Quill e-magazine, and I wanted to do a similar thing. So that idea has kind of been percolating in my brain for a while. And I was like, you know what? I want to do something with the podcast that I do, like the radio show becomes a podcast. I want to do something with that where I could talk with authors and storytellers about the fun side of storytelling. Because a lot of times you hear questions about craft and doing the work and like, how do I become an author? That kind of stuff. And those are the kind of questions that you get over and over and over again, right, guys?
Oh yeah,
all the time.
And if somebody would just do a little research, they could see like your viewpoint on certain things. And there's nothing wrong with that, because when somebody's getting into something new, that's okay. I think it's great. But I wanted to hit on the fun side of storytelling, because it's like, why do this? Because like I joke around, and I know I've talked with you, Ron, and you, Bobby, but I joke around like writing is the most amount of work for the least amount of pay of any job I've ever had in my life. I would not be doing this if it weren't fun. You
notice neither one of us argued with you.
I know, right?
not in the slightest.
But it's a labor of love, though. I love it. Like, I don't, when I'm working on publishing or writing, sometimes not so much writing, but the publishing side for sure. When I'm working on that kind of stuff, it does not feel laborious to me. It does not feel like, a ton of work. And I get lost my time. I just lose time that way. Now, sometimes when I'm writing, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I can just write and write. Sometimes when I'm writing, I struggle because I'm like, well, like Bobby and I were talking yesterday. There's a scene that I'm on in my new story, Dead Planet Run, where I'm like, I don't know what's coming up next, and my characters aren't talking to me. They're giving me the silent treatment. So I really don't know what's up next.
Oh, that's a bummer. Believe it, okay?
Yeah.
I've had a few of those characters.
Yeah. And so with the Storytellers Mag, everybody. And this is the reason why I'm kind of going into this introduction, is because I want to make sure that, it is a new thing, and we're doing like a launch party today. So the first hour of the Adam Messer Show, we're going to be talking about like the fun side of storytelling. And then the second hour, you get to hear the first parts of Ron and Bobby's interview. I'm going to do like the first, 20, 25 minutes of each, because I only have an hour for the second hour. But you'll be able to go onto our website, storytellersmag.com, and you can sign up for the free digital magazine, and you'll be able to listen to the podcast for free. You can go on there, and it's just a little email sign up. We're not going to spam you. I'm not going to, not trying to sell you anything or anything like that. It's just a free magazine, and I think it's really interesting. I've been putting it together, and I really enjoyed the interviews I've done so far. And so that is pretty much Storytellers Mag in a nutshell. We're sharing the fun side of storytelling. So
yeah, and the beauty of it is too is if you ask 10 different storytellers how they do things, you're gonna get probably 10 different answers.
Yes.
There will be parts in there that are similar, but everybody has their own flair or their own, their own rituals that go into what they do.
And I'm so glad that you brought that up, because for the written questions, all of the authors get the same questions, just because of that reason. Because I can ask you, Bobby, and Ron, I can ask you all the same exact question, and I will get 2 different answers.
Mm-hmm.
And I could ask you the same question 5 years from now, and I'll probably get a different answer from you too.
Probably.
Because we grow.
Life is, it evolves. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. One of the things I try to tell, young writers or whatever is that you never know it completely.
Mm-hmm.
Ever. Okay? I mean, you can be working at this for years, and Bobby and I both have, and you get to a point where people say, well, this is really easy for you. It's never really easy. It's work, all right?
Yeah.
All right? It's basically shaping and molding something. But the satisfaction and the rewards when it happens, and ultimately, I can look back on stuff that I wrote 10, 15, 20 years ago and cringe, okay, and say, oh, okay, yeah, all right, I could tell that was Ron, the rookie, okay? But that just shows me the gap. I still have so much more to learn. But the only way you learn it, and I think Bobby will agree, the only way you learn it is to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When you see those mistakes, you're like, oh, this is where I learned how to do this.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, for sure. Because like the first published work that I put out was in 2018. And I started writing fiction like 2014, but I had a novel that I didn't publish. And I just kind of worked on different stuff. But the first one I published was in 2018. And then I look back, I don't cringe on it. Like, I know where you're coming from, though, Ron, because I have done that before. But I don't cringe. But from that first little novelette to publishing this new anthology, I've grown tremendously. I mean, I've learned a whole lot, the last couple of years. And I've been studying this craft, for the last 5 or 6 years. And I've always felt like I was a good writer because I took like AP English in high school. I've got a couple of degrees, and I did academic writing and business writing. But fiction writing is a whole nother animal. It's a whole nother level. And I found that some people really love the way that I write and my writing style, and then I found other people, they don't like it, and I'm okay with that. And I'll give an example. Like one of the writers that I'm working with, they kind of do a lot of dialogue, and they're a fantastic author. They do a lot of dialogue and not so much action, and it's okay because it kind of reminds me of like a soap opera type. There's action, but there's a lot more dialogue, and there are readers for that. And then there's other people that they just want action. So I'm okay with that. But yeah, I've definitely learned a lot. And I mean, I look at you two, the work that you've done and that you continue to do. And I am so honored for both of y'all to be, the first guest that I'm having for the Storytellers Mag.
Well, yeah, I think we can differentiate here because, I know you're referring to it in off kilter way, Adam. And I know Bobby's going to, chime in with this. But I can remember being in high school and having this desire to be a writer.
Hmm.
Okay, but you know what? I sucked at grammar.
Hmm.
I still do. All right. So the fates, call them what you will, okay, actually put me in the path of this amazing English teacher that I had for 3 years in high school. I had her my freshman, sophomore, and my senior year.
Oh,
All right.
wow.
And she was the one who, when reading my essays, we're talking your assignments and all that, right, would basically told me one day, "You want to be a writer? No, you should." And I went, "Yeah." And she goes, "Well, that's obvious. You have a flair for storytelling."
Hmm.
And now, okay, and that's when I started to get the difference between the two, because I looked at her and I said, "Yeah, but my grammar's." She goes, "Forget your grammar. Don't worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
If you concentrate on the mechanics, you're losing the whole goal of what a storyteller does." She
Mm-hmm.
says, "Ron, you love telling stories about people, whether they're real or fictional." And that was the lesson I took from her, that's guided me to the rest of my career. All right. It's You can be the pitch perfect grammar writer. Well, good for you. All right. But then bore people to death and put them to sleep. All right. To me,
Mm-hmm.
a good storyteller is somebody who spins a yarn, and I can give a hoot what their grammar is all about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you find your voice.
Exactly.
You know, when Ron writes a story or I write a story, people that know our work will see things in the story that are, ooh, that is a Ron Fortier moment,
Mm-hmm.
or that is a Bobby Nash moment, because we found our voice and those things come through.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that's part of where the storytelling comes from, is you get to, and it's different not only for different mediums, because we both write comics, we write novels, we write short stories, we've both done scripts, so in each one of those works a different muscle, a different creative muscle, and has a little different, but sometimes it's a different creative experience just depending on what character you're writing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You may get a different feeling from, say, writing Sherlock Holmes, but you get a completely different feeling writing the Green Hornet.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because
exactly.
because not only are they different characters, but they mean different things to us as the writer.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I haven't done any kind of those kind of character writings or anything like that. I haven't done any.
Even your own characters, though.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I was gonna say, but
know.
with my own characters, you get a different feel, and like even writing, like for example, I started writing like a humorous sci-fi book, and as I was writing it, it was like a really dark sci-fi. It was not humorous. It was not funny, and I was like, well, this is not the book that I set out to start writing, you know. But that was the way that it started going, and I was like, well, kind of have to go with the flow. And I love Ray Bradbury. This last year is the first time I really started reading any of his works, and I just love the fact that, like, one of the things he says about writer's block is that if you have writer's block, it's telling, your heart's telling you that it's not the right thing for what you're trying to do with the story. And I don't know, I just have always loved good storytelling, good conversations, good storytelling. Yeah, that's the whole thing. It's like, why do we do it? Why? I mean, like, if it's work and it's all this other stuff, why do we do it? It's got to be the love of it. I got to do the station announcement real quick. Give me 1 second, y'all.
It's that desire. It's that desire to entertain people with these stories.
Hold that thought, Ron. I got to do the station ID. I'm sorry. Everybody, you're tuning in today. You're listening to WRUU-LP Savannah, Georgia, on 7.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. This is the Adam Messer Show, and it's a special edition of the Adam Messer Show. We're doing the Storytellers Mag launch party with Ron Fortier and Bobby Nash and myself, and we're talking about, like, the love of storytelling. So go ahead, Ron.
Well, recently, a few years ago, I'm online one day, and a good friend of mine and a colleague of ours is one of the finest writers in the country today, in my humble opinion. That's Max Allen Collins.
Mm-hmm.
And Max, a few years ago, was awarded by the Private Eye Writers of America, or the Mystery Writers of America, the Grand Masters Award. And so at the ceremony, right, when he was given this award, he was going to give this speech. And God bless, somebody videotaped it. So when I realized it was on YouTube, I sat down and watched it. And the speech, Max's speech lasts maybe 10 minutes, if that long, all right? And he gets up there, and the crux of it, the whole nucleus of what he said, and this man has written books and books of every genre you could think of. He's such a gifted writer. And he ends it with saying, in the end, the reason he's up there getting that award is because there's only one thing he ever wanted to do all his life, and that was be a good storyteller. It blew me away. It wasn't about anything else except he loves telling stories in that nutshell. And at the heart, I think, of every good writer, all right, is that desire to take the experiences you've had in life with other people and that you've lived, and to put those out there again, to share them with the same people that are going through this journey with you. You know what I'm saying? Derek Ferguson, again, another colleague of ours, said if aliens ever came down and visited Earth, the first thing they'd realize is the human race is a race of storytellers.
Oh yeah. I saw something that was talking about fantasy and imagination, and that we're humans, but we are our imaginations. We are, our fantasies that we imagine and we live, because everything's a perception. Our reality, it doesn't matter if we're looking at the same thing. We're going to have different perceptions of it, and that's our imagination. That's like, how we perceive things. And I feel like you're so right with that. I mean, like, everything is a story, like what we tell ourselves, what we talk with other people about. I mean, how we talk about it, it's always some kind of story.
But it's always fun to get together like we're doing right now, because again, if we go to conventions, the first thing writers do, I mean, is just we gravitate towards each other, and then we spend hours sharing those stories about the trials and tribulations of doing this.
Oh yeah.
Right, because what we do is a very lonely job.
Yeah,
well,
you can.
We're usually, we're usually in a room by ourselves.
Yeah.
We don't see a lot of people. We, especially this year and last year, we're not seeing a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever we can get around, especially like-minded, creative people, who understand, because I can talk to my family about writing and they could care less.
Mm-hmm.
But I can call up one of my writer buddies when I'm having something's not working, and I can just talk about, writing problems to people that understand, or writing successes,
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned earlier how it's the most work for the least little money, but we do get these nice bonuses in what we do. And I'm sure you guys have probably experienced this too, when someone comes up to you and says, I read your book and oh my God, that was fantastic. Or, I fell in love with this character in your book, or, something like that, where not only are you storytelling, but you've touched someone.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're saying there with my poetry books, and I not so much with the fiction. I haven't had that yet with the fiction, because I've only got a couple of titles out. But with my poetry, I've had people, like, cause I've hosted some events, not this last year, but the year before, and it was amazing to me that they said the exact same thing, like, it really touched them. And that, I was kind of taken aback, because I hadn't thought about that ramification of it. I hadn't thought about, like, I was just writing to write. I was writing these poems to write and get it off of my, soul. I never thought about how would it impact someone else until someone told me that.
It isn't.
Let me share. I got to share this one with you, because again, we're talking.
Yeah.
And it's the truth in that you put it out there. Okay, it's something you hope is positive and decent, and you put it out there. And over the years doing conventions, I've had all kinds of people come up to me, and I've had people come up to me and say, "Hey, I read your work, and it's what made me want to be a writer." And that's like,
oh wow,
God, that's crazy. But I can also remember really personal moments where this gentleman, an adult now, right, was a teenager, when my Green Hornet was being published. And he came up at a convention one time to meet me, shake my hands, and tell me that he was like 12 or 13 at the time, and his parents were going through a divorce. And it was like one of the hardest times in his life. And he only remembers my Green Hornet comic books as somehow being this oasis for him, where he could get away from that hurt and pain and confusion of what was going on in his life.
Wow.
And he clung to those stories. And here he was all these years later thanking me for giving him an anchor. I mean, after he walked away, I looked at my wife, and she just looked at me. It's like, you have no clue what your stories are going to do.
Yeah.
You know, something...
Because once they're out there, we lose, unless something like that happens, we lose all track. We don't know who's reading it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what's going on in those people's lives. Because just like with us writing it, our personal experiences change it. Where you are in your life, when you're going through rough times, that finds itself into your work. When you're going through great times, that finds itself in your work. And sometimes when people read things, we attach memories to stories. I do that all the time. I remember just a couple of weeks ago, I ran across this big little book on eBay that I had when I was a kid. Hadn't thought of it in years, but I saw it and I was like, ooh! And suddenly all these memories that were attached to the book came flooding in. So I bought the book. Yeah, the book's good, and I love the book, but the memories that I've attached to it make it almost elevate it,
Mm-hmm. That nostalgia really hits home.
Yeah, so you don't know, like I said, that guy who was reading the Green Hornet when his parents were going through divorce, as much as he loved the stories, he now has that memory tied to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a beautiful thing, that we can do that, and again, it's you don't want to take all the credit on ourselves, because a lot of times it's just luck of the draw, but the fact that if you ever that we've written stuff that has meant something to people is always incredible, because I don't know about you guys, but I sometimes assume no one's reading anything I write.
Oh, I do that too.
It goes. I know it goes out.
Yeah.
I know there are sales, but you just never. So when you find out that people are reading your stuff, especially early on, when I found out people were reading my stuff, or the first time I got fan mail, it just blew my mind. And
to circle back around to what you were saying too, Ron.
Yeah.
I worked for 10 years. I worked with students at a university, and going back to what you and Bobby are both saying, you never know how words will affect somebody. A word of encouragement could help somebody make it through a difficult time. I've had students, like, now it's been years since I've worked at the university, but I've had students, I'll run into them in public, and they'll come up and give me a hug, and they'll tell me, thank you so much or whatever. And so I agree. I mean, it's like, you never know how what you're saying can help someone else out there and help them through it. Like with that guy, when his parents are going through a divorce, or and I remember when you posted that picture, Bobby, like those nostalgic moments. Like, I'm a big Transformer fan. I loved Transformers when I was a kid. I went and saw the movie in the theaters. It was like a big deal when I was a kid, when they came out, and I like that nostalgia too. So. And I think that goes back to the storytelling. It's like, we identify ourselves, and we see, different things with these characters, and we're like, oh man, like I want to be like for me, one of my favorite comics of all time was The Dark Knight Returns, or The Legend of the Dark Knight, I'm sorry, and the Phoenix Saga, from the X-Men. And so I always think back to those. I'm like, wow, those are two storylines that really hit home for me as a kid growing up.
And when you read them, you remember where you were when you read them the first time.
Oh, I can go back, for example, like in movies and a thing like that, I can go back and read a certain scene and it all just boom. Or like I can watch a certain, 2 or 3 minutes of a movie, and like the whole thing just kind of floods back.
Yep.
So let me ask the two of you this, all right? because I don't want people listening to this not realize that this whole storytelling thing is pretty much a roller coaster in our lives. It goes pretty much up and down. I know there have been in my life, and that the early stages. Let's say this. Let's go back to the early stages. There were times when I couldn't sell anything. I couldn't get anybody to look at my work, and I can remember one time. Basically, I'd been published a few times, but it seemed like that was going to be it. I was hitting a wall all the time, and I was at the point of saying, I'm not going to do this again. It's heartbreak. It's rejection. I can't keep doing this. It's putting my heart out there for what reason? Blah blah blah, and throwing the towel in, saying, that's it. I'm done. I'm never going to write again. Which, of course, at the time was absolutely naive. Because as I've gotten older and realized I can't do that, I have to do it. It's how I breathe. But I know my wife looked at me at that time and just shook her head like, yeah, okay, yeah, I believe that. Like, I mean, women are 10 times smarter than we'll ever be, guys. All right.
So are you asking, Ron, if there was a time where we just felt like we had a failure and we were just going to kind of throw up our hands?
Yeah.
Do you want to hit that one first, Bobby?
Sure. Yes, I have had multiple why do I put myself through this moments. I've had moments where you like my first published novel, that's a big deal. It turned out to be a horrible publishing company. Just horrible experience. But I had a book out of it. So, I've had a couple of other bigger projects that have happened where the book comes out and it should have been this, and then behind the scenes stuff kind of sours the experience. And I don't want to go into details on any of those, but those things do make you go, why do I keep putting myself
But the
through
audience
this?
wants to know, Bobby.
Yeah, well.
I'm just kidding, man. Everybody wants to hear the tea, right? They all want you to spill the tea, but I respect that you're professional and not going to do that.
Yeah, but it's one of those things too. For those things that were bad or made me want to give it up, I will say in my career, the ones that are positive and make me want to keep going far outweigh those.
Amen.
And yes, and through the course of doing this, I have made some incredible lifelong friends like Ron, Adam, Derek, who we mentioned earlier, Sean Taylor, guys I met at cons.
Randy Bishop.
Yeah, Randy Bishop. I've known Randy. I've known Randy when Randy was going around showing his samples to people. I met
Randy in 2014 when he had first published the first issue of Hawk in New York. That's where I met him at GnomeCon. It was I think I bought the first copy that he sold there, and so I agree with you. It's like you make great friends this way.
Yes, and doing what we do, I've made wonderful friends. I've wonderful friends who have become colleagues. We work together, or the writing community. There is a very welcoming and encouraging community. I've had people, other writers, say, hey, well, you should read this guy's work, or things like, hey, I like your stuff. We're doing this book. Would you like to be part of it? That happened with the first new pulp book I ever worked on was Landstar Sky Ranger. And that was because Ron and I spent a weekend sitting next to each other at Dragon Con talking. And my first novel had just come out. And after our talking, and Ron went home with a copy of Evil Ways. And I remember it was like 2 or 3 weeks later, I get an email going, hey, would you like to write some pulp stuff? And I'm like, sure. I just have one question. What's a pulp story?
Yeah.
But things like that, this writing community is great. I see more, it's a very encouraging, open, friendly, helpful group.
Oh, completely, totally, 100%. I mean, really.
We got to go to the half an hour break, y'all. And then when we come back up, we'll pick it right back up. But everybody, you're tuning in today to the station here at WRUU-LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Sonics Community Radio with Global Soul, and we'll be back in a couple minutes after these announcements. And here's Sebastian Messer playing live. You got a new amp, right? He's got a new amp, y'all, and he's going to be playing some. And Bobby and Ron, you probably can't hear it because of the way that the aux is, but it'll be on the podcast. So here's Sebastian Messer, everybody.
What does it mean when we say that WRUU is a community radio station? It doesn't just mean that we invite the community to create programming. And it doesn't just mean that we are a voice for the community. It also means that we are counting on the community to keep us going. And you are the community. Almost all of our modest budget comes from small annual or monthly donations from listeners like you. You get to enjoy our community-focused programming because many others have stepped forward to do their part. Now do your part by joining our community of listener donors. Go to WRUU.org right now and make a one-time or monthly donation. And thank you for supporting Savannah's community radio station, 107.5 FM.
This is a message from the Georgia State Department of Public Health. There is a State of Georgia hotline people can call with questions or if they think they may have been exposed to the COVID-19 virus. It is 1-844-442-2681. If you believe you're experiencing symptoms of COVID-19 or have been exposed to the novel coronavirus, please contact your primary care doctor, an urgent care clinic, or your local federally qualified healthcare center. Please do not show up at an emergency room or healthcare facility unannounced. More information can be found at dph.georgia.gov. From our cobblestone streets to our stately homes, discover Savannah's maritime history and what makes Savannah, Savannah. One of the hidden secrets of Savannah is the Gardens of the Ships of the Sea Museum. Picnic here and enjoy our complimentary Wi-Fi. More information can be found at shipsofthesea.org.
All right, and we're back, everybody. Thank you for tuning in today. This is the Adam Messer Show, and I'm your host, Adam Messer, and this is a special edition of the Adam Messer Show. We are doing a launch party for Storytellers Mag, and Storytellers Mag is an e-magazine and a podcast where we talk with storytellers like authors, artists, musicians, screenwriters, and so on about the fun side of storytelling. And today my special guests are authors Ron Fortier and Bobby Nash. So we've been talking this first half an hour about, just kind of like why do we keep doing it? Because we love it. Ron, I think right before the break you were asking if there was a time where we wanted to give up, and Bobby gave a really good little story there. And to answer your question, yes, not that I was going to give up, but so I started freelancing for the paper back in 2014, getting paid to write professionally. And I was like, oh, this is cool, whatever. The first time I thought, well, is this really for me, like the fiction writing? 2014, I spent about 12 months writing a novel. And, I've learned a lot about craft and writing since then, but I would only write when I was inspired and blah, 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 the same old typical amateur, newbie stuff. Sent it to a good friend of mine who read it, and they kind of were dragging their feet telling me, like any kind of feedback. And so like 3 or 4 months later, I was like, hey, did you have a chance to read it? And they were like, yeah. I was like, well, what did you think? And they kind of hesitated. and they didn't want to tell me. And I was like, it's okay. I'm not going to get upset. I just would like to hear your feedback because this is my first, time writing a novel. And they were like, I don't know how to tell you, but it's really bad. And I was like, yeah. And it was weird because like I took a year off from writing after that. I was like, oh man, should I do this or should I not do this? Well, I didn't realize that first drafts are crap. They're just garbage. And I had sent him my first draft. And so anyway, I went back to like learning and studying and reading up about, the hero's journey and all that stuff, because that's my mind, right? It's like, I'm a student, I'm a learner, And then I started getting back into it and published that first novelette. It had relatively decent reception. Had some decent reviews, and I was like, oh, this is great, and I thought, oh, this is going to be fun. So it took me a year to write the next one because I didn't write it, and I put the second one out, and it fell flat, completely flat. I think I sold 2 copies, and I just couldn't even give the book away. It was like, the thing was that what I learned was that I did the wrong thing about putting the book out there at the wrong time. It wasn't even so much the story. It was the way that I put it out there. So I had to think really hard about that. I was like, I screwed up big time. And I was like, well, is this even worth it? That kind of thing. And I was like, you know what? If I'm going to do this, it's okay. I'm going to be okay with not doing it well at first and learning as I go. So came back and put out that anthology, the Devil's Due anthology this year, which I have a story in it. And we have 12 other authors, including Bobby Nash and a bunch of others. And it's had a great reception. We've had a lot of great reviews. We've had it reviewed by several horror review sites. And Ron, you did a really nice write-up on it on your Airship 27 page. I think it's the Airship 27 page.
Which was very easy to do because it's really an excellent collection of stories. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, so I just took that failure and because I'm not a person that quits. I'm one of these people that like, yeah, I'll fall. You'll see me fall down, but you'll never see me stay down. You'll always see me get back up. And especially when it's something that I really love doing, I'm gonna keep putting the effort in. I'm gonna keep getting back in the ring and taking the, there's this old saying. It was when I was doing jiu-jitsu. There was this old saying like, there's the hammer and the nail, and you've got to be the nail until you can be the hammer, and you just got to hang in there and keep taking the beatings until one day you're gonna be the hammer, and somebody else is gonna be the nail.
Most writers that I have had the good fortune to meet and to know, my colleagues, and I'll be here included, definitely at the top of that list, okay? Most of the writers that I have met in this almost 50-year career are such good people without egos, which blows me away, because the thing is, and again, it's the thing, again, when we get together as writers and talk about, a lot of this has to do with confidence in yourself and your ability, and that never really comes easy. It's like you can look back on a career of all these published works, but all of a sudden, a publisher or an editor that you admire calls you up and says, "Hey, I need a story for this anthology or whatever. Can you help me out?" Mm-hmm. And you commit, say, "Okay, I'm going to do it." But then comes the challenge. And it really never lessens, because what you want is to make it even better than the last thing you did.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's like I asked Bobby. I was like, "Hey, man, would you be willing to write a short story for me for this anthology?" And he was like, "Yeah." And that Dante's 10th, I think, is one of the best. Like I like all the anthology stories, personally, and professionally, but Dante's 10th, that was one of the better ones. I feel like it was like one of the best ones that we had out of the group.
Well, the characterizations were so priceless. All right. I mean, honestly, Bobby, it was like, and I put that in my review of the collection, though, is that I found the characters absolutely fascinating. And that's what you do as a writer, which I admire greatly, is make characters come alive. So much so that when you get to the end of the story, you want to know what happened next.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was one of those things. I don't know where I learned it exactly, but somewhere along the way, I started to realize that it didn't matter what story I told if I didn't know the character. And I don't know how that, because sometimes we learn these things and you can't remember how you learned it.
Exactly.
But yeah, so somewhere along the line, either someone said something to me, or it was just a moment of clarity that it came to me about working on the characters first that helped me a lot. But also in terms of, we were talking about how when writers get together or things like that. There was a point when I first started. I was very focused on how many sales can I get. If I was at a convention and I didn't sell X number of books, I went home unhappy. And there came a point where I started realizing that the money was secondary to that. If I stopped focusing on the money and just focused on talking up the books, talking to people, not selling to people, talking to people, that I was much happier. And then there was this weird thing that happened. I sold more books because as soon as I stopped trying to hard sell people, I sold more books.
That's so true with sales, because one of the things I like to say with folks, because I've done a bunch of sales in the past too, is everybody likes to buy. Nobody likes to be sold. Nobody likes being sold. They like to buy. And they buy you. I mean, like, that's not, I didn't make that up. That's just something that's pretty common. If they like you, they're more than likely to check out your books and stuff.
Well, right. I mean, look, this is like, convention 101 here. I mean, there are two types of people at cons, behind those tables. There's the used car salesman, all right, that's going to tackle you if you walk by, all right? Yeah. Or there's the friendly guy who wants to have a good time and chat with you about this or that, all right? I mean, my experiences with conventions, guys, and we were talking about how writing is such a lonely thing, so that by the time I was selling and whatever the next step was, well, you got to get out there publicly. You got to do conventions and let people meet you. I go to conventions, and honest, I don't know about you guys, but the first few conventions, I didn't sell anything because I was too freaking shy to talk to people. Yep. I just sat there twiddling my thumb, watching people walk by until, the light bulb goes on and goes, oh, wait a minute, this isn't working, okay? So now it was like baby steps. Next convention, say hi, people walk by, how you doing, this or that. And Bobby, I don't think I ever had that concept of what the sales are going to be like, as much as wanting to meet people and enjoy the experience of the convention of being behind that table. And that's eventually what started happening, gradually, more and more, until, as you've already realized, and a lot of our colleagues get this, okay? Ultimately, the experience of being at the con and meeting fans for the first time, making all kinds of the same people come back the following year, and you make old friends, et cetera, et cetera.
Hey, Bobby.
Hey, you know what? Selling is secondary. It's totally secondary.
Bobby,
right?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's just the mic is coming back real heavy on that. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not really sure what's going on, but it just has a lot of reverb there. Sorry. It's coming across the radio too. But just a mic check on you real quick.
Okay.
But no, yeah, I totally agree with you, Ron.
We've all done shows repeatedly now.
Yeah.
We've been this, all right, so that we've made friends.
Mm-hmm.
You do the same shows every year, and it's so much fun. The same people come back, and they head straight to your table because they want to see what new stuff you've got. All right, because they enjoy meeting you and they like you. And you can't put a price tag on that.
Yeah. Well, they follow you back from a panel to your table
Yep.
because they heard you on a panel and says, I got to check out this guy's stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy too. Like, cause on the other side of that, before I hosted conventions, I actually would work them buying and selling and trading Transformer toys. And, I've been doing that since like, I don't know, 2011. So not as much, time as y'all have been doing it. But, when I hosted the conventions here in Savannah, the Quill, the first one we did, it was pretty decent. I mean, we had about 100 people show up. The second one, it was in a lot better location, but man, it was a flop. Bobby, you were there at that one. It was a dud. I mean, like, it was a nice location and all, but it was a bad. It was a decent hotel, but it was a bad traffic location, and we weren't doing like cosplay and comic book stuff or whatever, so we didn't have that kind of draw. But when I changed it up to a smaller venue with less authors, we had 10 authors at the 2019 one. And we had a downtown location. We had a great time. And it was, the one of the things I told the authors was that, yes, you're going to sell books, but when folks would sit behind the table and they wouldn't talk to people, you can't sell anything if you don't talk to somebody. And I never understood the folks that would go to a convention and they would pay for a table space or they'd be a guest or whatever, and then they wouldn't talk with folks. They would just sit there, and then they would say, well, I didn't sell anything today. Well, every time I'd walk by, you were on your phone, or you weren't at your table, or you weren't talking to people. Like, people would come up and stop, and you were just impersonable, and I can't promise you that you're going to sell books.
I learned, one of the best things I ever learned is when, no matter how shy you are at a convention, your table is the ultimate icebreaker. People are there to look around. Yeah. So there's a reason for you to say hello,
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you might not be able to do that in other places, but your table is like the perfect icebreaker.
Yeah, we've got to do the station ID real quick, guys. Everybody, you're tuning in today to WRU-LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. And something, I'm so glad that you brought that up, Ron, and that you're talking about it too, Bobby, because I do this Books and Brews Savannah. It's a charitable fundraiser where we have authors get together at the Savannah Southbound Brewing Company to raise money for the Ronald McDonald Charities of the Coastal Empire. And I always tell the authors, you can bring books and you can sell books, but it is not a book selling event. We're here to raise funds for the charity, and it's a charitable event. So yeah, you'll probably, you might sell a book or two, and people usually sell like a book or two, but we're there to raise money for the house,
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of weird, but having run a bunch of events, vendor events and stuff like that, and then hosting a couple different conventions and things like that, you always get these folks that are, I don't know how to say it. They want to nitpick about everything. You know what I mean? Like, nothing's ever good enough for them. And those are the folks that I try to vet out. Like, honestly, yeah. I try not to, like, if they get through the first time, okay, you got me, but you're not coming back. You know what I mean? Because they're not there they're there thinking that they're going to sell a ton of books and they're going to do this and that and the other. And it's like, I can't sell books for you. I can open a venue up. I can have people come out. I can't sell your books for you, and.
Right. Because at the end of the day, that's on us.
Right.
Yeah.
And I look at it too, like when you're talking about the sales, because when I said that one book fell flat, I only sold 2 copies of it. I didn't sell massive numbers for the first one. I think I sold like 50 or 60 copies, but when I had 2 copies sold on the second one, I was like, what did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong here? And then I realized, okay, well, I made a lot of new like rookie mistakes or whatever, and so. Just I try to learn and go with it, and I feel like I'm a very new fiction author, and especially like a brand new publisher. I look at guys like y'all, and I'm like, well, hey, what's working for them? How can I reach readers? Because I could care less at this point about selling the books as much as I would like to connect with readers,
Right.
you know, and I give away a lot of free copies.
Right, because if all we do is try to sell people, that turns people off.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
If everything you do on social media is a buy my book type thing, that turns people off.
Yeah.
But I think we all do other things. Ron reviews books. I post book reviews when I read them. We do podcasts where we talk about things where we're not on active. Like here, we're not selling books.
Right.
At no point in this almost hour we've done, none of us are actively going, you should buy this new book.
Right.
But you're connecting with people. You're talking to them, and you just happen to at somewhere in there go, oh, by the way, we have books if you want to check them out. But you're connecting with people first and foremost. You're not selling them. You're connecting with them, and I think that helps a lot. I mean, people talk all the time about you as your brand, and that's all technical talk about just being human and talking to people. This is us. You know who we are. There's not, there's not a lot of airs. There's not a lot of acting. You see us on social media. This is how we are. If you meet me at a con or you meet Ron at a con, you're going to get the guys you're hearing right now.
Yeah.
For sure.
This is who we are.
Well, I think too, going back to the nostalgia part, it's so much fun when you connect with somebody who likes the same kind of stuff that you like. Like the Green Hornet, for example. We all three like the Green Hornet. That's a common character that we like. We were talking yesterday about the Lone Ranger. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I feel like it's so fun, so much fun. Like going back to the storytelling, like the Storytellers Mag, talking about the fun side of storytelling. I feel like that is a big part of the fun of it is being able to share that common bond of enjoying something together.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's having had the ability to write characters that aren't mine, characters that I've enjoyed. There is a bit there, and I know Ron's done this because he's written the Green Hornet and other characters, that he didn't create, like I said, same as I have.
Yeah.
There is a unique kind of fun where you're getting to play with somebody else's toys, toys that characters that you love. There's a lot of fun to that, and yeah, it's one of those experiences that, for me, I'm so glad I was able to do that because it was a lot of fun. And it,
classic characters, right? I mean,
yeah,
it's pretty much living your dreams because once the new pulp thing got going, and people like Joe Gentile, Tommy Hancock, and everybody else started getting into this stuff. People started, making available classic characters from the 1930s and 40s, and then turned around and offered them to us to write their new adventures.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I mean, I the first time Joe Gentile came to me from Moonstone and said, "Would you like to write an Avengers story?" I fell out of my chair. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, that was so much fun. I love those characters, and of course, it's that double-edged sword because you want to do this, but boy, you want to get it right.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I can screw up my character that nobody knows better than me, but by God, if I screw up this Edgar Rice Burroughs thing I'm doing, the Burroughs fan base knows this backward and forward.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't want to be the guy that screws this up.
Or something else, like talking about that same thing, because I haven't written. I've never done any kind of fan fiction or any kind of like media tie-in stuff or anything like that. But like fan fiction is just not sanctioned, writing of different characters.
Right.
It's the same vein.
Playing.
Yeah, it's the same.
You having fun.
Yeah. It's the same vein. Like you're using somebody else's characters and you're doing this. Like you're writing that story. I have read fan fiction before and I've read other stuff, but it is one of those things where, like, you can tell if a person is into that universe or into that realm when their story comes out, right? You can tell if somebody is a genre lover versus someone who's just doing it just to do it. They got a check or whatever.
Well, fan fiction too. Fan fiction, you can do whatever you want. It's just you writing.
Yeah.
That's why you see some fan fiction that goes way off the rails.
Oh yeah.
Doing licensed tie-in work comes with a big old set of do's and don'ts and rules.
Yeah.
Because I get that from some of the stuff I've done that's tie-in work. It's like, oh man, why can't you do something like this? I'm like, because that's do not number 3 in the Bible.
Well, you don't want to do something that's out of character, for that character. And because it would be off-putting for the fans, especially if it's a licensed character. Like, for example, Disney, they protect their IPs vigorously. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They do not want their IP, being portrayed in a negative light or anything like that. And you want it to be reflective, the story to be reflective of the character. You don't want to, try to redo the character and then make it completely opposite.
Yeah. Well, and not just the character, but sometimes the setting. When we worked on the Green Hornets for Moonstone, that was the TV show version. That meant the story had to feel like the TV show.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right.
So you had to incorporate elements that were in the show. So, because it needed to feel like an episode. So that meant there had to be a let's roll Kato. There had to be those moments that are in every episode.
Yeah.
So, and some people, I did get some comments from people. It's like, man, all of you guys are doing the same. It's like, well, you kind of have to. If it's in every episode of the show, it's got to be in the stories.
Yeah.
And sometimes people don't. Sometimes people who read the stories assume that we as writers can just do whatever we want.
And I think, just to tie it in for because we got to wrap it up for the hour, but to tie it in for me, and I'd like to get y'all's final thoughts, like the 30-second thoughts here. But for me, for storytelling, it's about the reading as well. I mean, it's about, listening to stories and telling stories and sharing stories. That's why I love it. I just love to hear other people's stories, and I love sharing stories, and especially, great friends like y'all. And the other folks that I've met along the way, I just love it. So, what are your thoughts? And we'll just go Ron and Bobby.
Well, I mean, the bottom line with any of this to me is telling stories about real people. Okay, whether whatever the genre, it's immaterial to anything. We touched on it several times in this hour. To me, it's about people. I like to tell stories about people. If I do that, then I'm not concerned about the plot, the genre, the setting. If I make these characters come alive and they entertain you, then I've done my job.
Nice. Bobby?
Yeah, what he said.
Ditto.
Character is always the first and foremost. Because if you've got a character that people love, they can forgive a plot that doesn't work. If they love the character, you can drop a character into a bad plot and it's a bad plot, but oh my God, they still love that character, so they're happy to keep reading. So, and I think just being able to just tell stories, it's an absolutely fabulous job, and I feel incredibly lucky that there are publishers out there willing to throw me a few pennies to do it.
Gentlemen, I'm really honored, and I appreciate y'all helping me with this Storytellers Mag launch, and thank you. From the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate y'all and the support, and I think you're both fabulous storytellers. So thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Adam, and again, thanks for having us on the show. Hey, it's been a treat and a lot of fun. So thanks.
Absolutely, and hopefully sometime in the very near future, we can all be in the same room together to do this sort of thing.
Oh, I'd love that. I'd love that. And everybody at home, if you want to check out more with the Storytellers Mag and get a copy of the free magazine with interviews with Ron Fortier and Bobby Nash, the first one's coming out in a couple weeks. So sign up for our email at storytellersmag.com. It's free. And the podcasts are I'm going to be playing part of the podcast in the next hour. So if you want to stay tuned, you can listen in and you can catch the first parts of it. And then that'll be available. So just check out storytellersmag.com.